Good day, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, AI Agents Keeping Pace with Progress, presented by BluWave Consulting Group. My name is John Fallon. I'll be the one of the hosts for this session. And before we begin, a few quick housekeeping items. This will be a focused 30-minute briefing designed to bring you up to speed on the most significant AI agent developments that we've seen. We're recording today's session, and the recording will be made available to all registered participants. Please keep your microphones muted during the presentation. If you haven't experienced any technical difficulties, please use the chat feature and message our support team. For questions, please use the Q&A function. I'll be monitoring it at the bottom of your screen, and we'll address as many questions as possible after the presentation. Now I'm delighted to introduce you to our speaker, Gary Wallin, our CEO at BluWave Consulting Group. We have been using AI to enhance our own business processes, and today we'd like to share with you how our experience can enhance your own businesses. We will be cutting through the noise to focus on the AI developments that actually matter to business leaders and professionals. And in today's fast-paced briefing, Gary will cover the most significant AI breakthroughs and emerging trends and their potential impact. And you'll see it and what you should be watching as far as we move forward. Following the presentation, we'll have slides available for download, and we'll open the floor to Q&A. Anyway, without further delay, please let me join me in welcoming Gary Wallin.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Wanted to first introduce Natalie from our team. She's an account executive with us, and you guys have any questions about what next steps to take, and she would be the person to contact to move forward with whatever goals and dreams that you have. So I wanted to first kind of start out with a little bit about my background. I've been in the IT industry about almost 30 years at this point, not quite 30 years. And I've been on the administration side, where for some of you, I know I've worked with some of you in the past as an IT administrator and project manager and whatnot. And then I flipped over to consulting, and I've been doing that now for the last almost 20 years. It's about 10 years on the administration side and 20 years on the consulting side. And so we've helped a lot of clients with a lot of different things dealing with their infrastructure, projects, and whatnot. And recently, in the last year or so, we've started working with AI and AI agents. And so what we wanted to talk about was kind of that, what we've learned about in the last 6 months, because relatively AI agents really wasn't a possibility until about 6 months or so ago, and share with you what some of the things that we've learned, what we know about, and then provide you an opportunity. We have an offering, a couple different offerings to share with you in terms of if you want to, like taking some next steps. So let me share my screen here. So the first thing that we want to talk about is the working with AI themselves. Some of you that we've worked with before, we've discussed this. We know about this, but for those of you who haven't, and that there may be some things in here that we share with you that you're not all that familiar with, is there's basically 3 main components in what we've learned in working with AI for the last 6 months or so. One is the model, then the context, and then the prompt. So from the model perspective, what we learned is that and this is kind of a no-brainer, is that the model is important. And with that, just to kind of review a few of the models that are out there today, this is from a site called Artificial Analysis. And I think it's a great site for kind of how to take a look at what's going on in the AI space. You probably have heard some of these announcements. Of course, everybody knows about ChatGPT. That's kind of the most famous model that's out there. But then there's also Claude, which is from a company called Anthropic. And of course, Google, not to be outdone, has their model. Mistral is a French model. Llama is Facebook or Meta's model. And then you've got Elon's X with Grok. And Microsoft is the 5.4 here. And then there's a bunch of other models. These are kind of the most common models that people are using to do various things today. And we're providing kind of an overview from artificial analysis of how smart it is to how expensive it is. And so to the right here is where the most expensive models are, with Claude 3.7 kind of leading the pack at being the most intelligent and the most expensive. And then down into this area. And of course, the area that you want to focus your energy and attention on probably is the green area. Now, at this point, OpenAI is the O4 Mini. OpenAI is leading the pack at the moment in terms of the most intelligent. But you can see that there's other models, like particularly Gemini, which is a little bit more expensive, and Grok 3 Mini, which are about the same, right? It's kind of negligible. So we pulled out all the expensive models and kind of just in order to focus on the ones that are kind of the least expensive ones. And oh, by the way, the Gemini 2.5 Pro has just eclipsed the O4 models just slightly with the release that they did just last week. So one of the things that you probably know and that we have learned, again, over the last 6 months, is that AI changes daily. And it's absolutely crazy. And so that's why we're thinking it might be a good idea to help with these types of things and to share these types of things, to kind of take all the information that's out there, sort out the snake oil, and provide, this is the information that you should probably pay attention to. So in this space, in the model space, these are kind of the models that give you the most bang for the buck, right? So that's the model. Next is context. And so context, there's a couple of different aspects to this that OpenAI has said, Anthropic has said, people have realized about how to best get out of a model what you're looking for. One of them is to give it a role. So when you say to a model, you are a expert in a particular area. You are an expert in astrophysics, in astrophysics, for example, right? What that does is it condenses the information that the model has to pay attention to. And so when you've got models, these large language models have just a ton of stuff that they have been trained on. It focuses the model down, and now you tend to get better responses when you provide it a role. Additionally, you want to include relevant documentation and links to things that are associated with what you want. So you can, in some cases, you can give models web pages. With the platform that we have, you can give the models web pages. You can provide documentation and whatnot in order to further give it more context as to, this is what I want you to focus your energy and attention on. So then it takes the energy that the model has and puts it more into a focused area. Another one is screenshots. So in a lot of cases, we'll provide screenshots of things. There's been examples where people who are developing with AI, they will take a screenshot of something that they see that they like, and they will then put it into the model and say, hey, make something like this, and the model is very good at doing that type of thing. And then we get to the prompt, and so there's a whole field of engineering out there now called prompt engineering, where people are getting to work with the models, and by telling it certain things, you get it to behave in different ways. I'll give you a couple of examples. One of the things that we now know about models is that they are, think of them as a lump of clay. Like when you start to deal with OpenAI's model, ChatGPT or, Anthropic's Claude or whatever, it's a mold. And it's kind of a, it's not very concise in how it operates. And when you provide it certain pieces of information, you shape that mold more into something that you're looking for. So, for example, when when we first start dealing with a model, it's lazy. A model, and it's not lazy in the sense that we think of lazy, but it's lazy in terms of it's trying to be efficient. And so it's going to not give you everything that you're looking for unless you tell it. You need to say something along the lines of, be thorough in your approach. Make sure that you don't leave anything out. Don't cut corners, things like this. And we find when we do that, we get better results. Another thing about dealing with models is have a conversation with it. One of the things that I saw recently, which I thought was fantastic, was don't think of it as using a model. Think of it as working with a model. Think of it as a teammate and work with it as you would a virtual teammate. You'll get a lot more out of it. They actually did an interesting study a couple of weeks ago where they found that if you're rude to a model, you get worse results. So if you're polite to a model, there's a Chinese study where if you're polite to a model, you get better results because basically it gets confused if you're rude to it. That's another thing that is related to that is be specific. Models love specifics. So if you can be as specific as you can about each aspect that you're working with, the more specific you are, the better off it's going to be. Another thing that, and this is coming from OpenAI's thoughts about how to get the best out of a model, is to give it examples. So if you say, this is what I'm looking for, and you give 3 specific examples and say, this is example 1, this is example 2, this is example 3, you're going to get a much better result of what you're looking for. And the other one is models don't do well with complex tasks. So if you tell it to do 15 different things in one prompt, you're going to get a much worse response than if you tell it to do one thing 15 different times and break it down. And there's actually tools that exist out there that will help a model take a large task, break it down into what those specific tasks are, and accomplish things very and do a good job of accomplishing things when it breaks down the tasks and takes it item by item. So that's the model context and prompt piece. Now, I want to
One thing on the first display, there's a reference to the pricing millions per token. You want to define a token for everybody?
Yeah, so a token is, we're talking about this here. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So a token is essentially, think of it as like a part of a word. Sorry, 4 words, I think is what a token winds up being roughly. It's a way for a model to process something. There's actually I'll show you when we get into the demo kind of what tokens are, but that's basically how they measure. The more words that you give a model and the more words that it provides back, those are tokens. That's what a token is. Thanks for bringing that up. That's really good. All right. So then continuing on, let's see if I get the right one here. Yeah. No. Okay. So now let's talk about kind of where we get from AI to AI agents. AI is you're chatting with it, you're getting content, you're providing, it's making plans, it's planning vacations, these types of things. You're asking it questions, you're asking it to do research. I don't know how many of you have dealt with the deep research options that are out there, but that's probably something that I would definitely recommend is if you're looking for information about something, is use the AI deep research functions that are available out there. They're just amazing at what they produce. But what turns an AI into an AI agent is when you give it the ability to do something, right? And one of the things that happened this last November is that Anthropic, the people who make Claude, they created this model context protocol. And what this is this gives the ability to plug in tools to an AI agent. So you give it a hammer, you give it a wrench, you give it a screwdriver, and it's think of it as kind of like the USB. I'm mixing metaphors here a little bit, but think of it as like the USB-C of dealing with AI. So you've got hundreds, maybe at this point thousands of MCP servers. I've actually built about 7 myself in order to have whatever isn't out there, in order to have AI be able to work with the things that we have. So for example, the things that we've built tools for is our ConnectWise professional services automation system, which you can think of it as like a services ERP system, right? So it does our ticketing, it does our billing, it does our time entries, it does our CRM, those types of things, right? And so now this model is able to work within our system, and I'll show you some examples of that. And then you can tie it to the financial system. We've tied it to Monday.com, which is a project management system, in order to build out projects and things like that. And so what this allows AI to do is to be much more valuable to us. Not that the content piece isn't important, but now it can actually do things. It can accomplish tasks. And you may have seen there's a bunch of different other things out there. OpenAI has their operator. There's this thing out there called Manus, whatever. But what people are really excited about is the fact that this USB-C protocol gives the ability for me to plug in a tool to a model and have the model do something, right? And you'll see this everywhere. So what I want to do now is share with you some examples of what we have done with AI models. So the first example is we have, for example, a customer service situation, and mail comes into a Google mailbox, for example, and a content agent with the tool to access Google picks it up and starts writing something. Then in order to respond to it, and then in order to validate and make sure, because you may have heard that models have a tendency, or have had in the past, more of a tendency to hallucinate, make stuff up, make things up that just basically don't exist. You have to make sure that the model, when you're asking it a question, it has to be grounded in some kind of reality, because it'll just make things up. And one of the most famous cases, one of the most famous situations dealing with this is you had a lawyer that got into trouble because he gave ChatGPT a case and said, make an argument, and ChatGPT completely made up a case law that didn't exist. They brought it before the judge, and the judge threw him out, and the guy got disbarred. So be careful when you deal with your AI models, and making sure. What we recommend, and you'll see it here, is that we always recommend a human in the loop, right? So, but before we do that, to kind of take all of the heavy work out of making sure that something's not making something up, is we're also including a reviewer agent. So the one agent, and by the way, this could be a different model, for example, right? If there's concerns about one model, using the same model for both functions, use a different model, and we have the ability to do that. So you have your content agent, that creates the information, and then the reviewer agent reviews it, says, hey, this isn't according to what the business rules that we have, and it spits it back to the content agent and goes back and forth. Then when the reviewer agent is happy, it then goes to the human in the loop in the same process. The person who's kind of overseeing the process can basically say, okay, well, I see that the AI content included these things, but it missed this, so bring it back to the content agent and let's start that cycle over again, right? So to give you an example of that, basically, kind of like a demonstration, we just said, hey, what's this for this particular customer service model flow, right? We said, what is the status of my particular order? Now, notice I did not put what the order was. Well, I didn't say, I ordered a hat or I ordered a sweater or something. And so we had a database of what the different orders were, right? So it says order, it says what it is, what the status of it is and all this type of stuff. And so then the AI comes back and it goes through that process, and the content agent and the reviewer agent, and then this is the human in the loop function, right? So this comes into an email inbox that says, okay, go ahead and approve this, and it says, hey, listen, your order, it looked it up and it says your purple shirt has been shipped, stuff like that, right? So these are the types of things that that the AI that the AI is able to do. So let me get another example here. Just a moment. All right. Okay, so this is an example where the basically we're setting up a situation where there was a client that had a security vulnerability, and they reached out to us and said, hey, we have an issue. And so what we did was this is one of those examples where we worked with our ticketing system, and I worked with AI in order to create the ticket, right? So I said to the AI, can you find the ticket about the website that's going on? So it's okay, I'll help you find this ticket. And one of the things that's interesting about how AI works, which I think is great, is that it, as opposed to a system, it will actually go through and if it fails at something, it'll try multiple times, right? So it's resilient about these things. So it says, okay, I found the ticket. Here's what's going on. This is what's happening with it. And so I said, okay, great. Can you summarize these tasks? Just summarize it. Okay, great. And then go ahead and make a time entry, right? And so then it makes the time entry. So so that's the ticketing system that we have, for example, and you can connect these agents to all the different systems that you have that are available out there. So we have a couple of offerings for you that we wanted to share just briefly. One of them is this. We're calling it an AI foundation. We call it the Blueprint AI Foundation, and what it is it has AI models. You've got all the AI models that are available out there in one platform, and you can even do multiple during the same chat session, so you can kind of compare between them. It has that chat interface, which I just showed you. It has routing. So one of the things you'll find out with models is that it will, in some cases, the model provider will rate limit. I don't know if you've run into this, but you'll see this all the time. Is that the popular models will say, "Oh, well, sorry, it's not busy. It's too busy right now. You can't access it, or you've used up your limitation. However much credits you have, you need to wait," type of thing, right? What you can do with routing is you can say, okay, I want to have this go from this model. If this model is not available, go to this model. If this model is not available, go to this model, and basically, work through if there's rate limits or issues with the model providers, right? It provides a knowledge base. We also provide monitoring in this platform, and then you can have documents and files and whatnot, and then it has its own search engine. And then there's also an interesting function which will basically take PII out of a chat and make sure that it's redacted before it goes to the model, if that's something that you're interested in. Okay, so just to kind of walk through the different pieces, one of the items that may make sense is, instead of having an AI model, which is kind of unpredictable, is you have AI automation, which is more specific, but there's AI components to it, so that you can essentially get something done more quickly. You can prototype rapidly in order to test something out and try something. And so for that, we've put in FlowWise and active pieces. The chat session will show you that. I discussed the routing part. The memory and knowledge base component, so basically giving the ability of an AI model to look up documentation, your important documentation. Protecting it with the security, make sure that there's a secure interface for accessing it. Monitoring, so you can see what models are being used and what the cost is associated with that. And for that, we've implemented LangFuse. And here's what that looks like. So basically, in this stack, right, we have LangFuse, which it'll explain this is what the model is. We're using a free model, so there's no model costs here or whatever. But here's the trace associated with it, and we can see the details of that, right? So this is something that I just did earlier today. We have all the details of everything, and I'll show you that in the chat in just a moment. So that's monitoring, access the files. Every system has to have a database for accessing all the different putting records in and creating records and whatnot. The search, this is a private search. It's called SeerXNG, and basically you can it kind of aggregates search, so you can keep the search controlled if that's something that you're interested in. It's also built into the same stack. And then this is that privacy piece that I was telling you about. So what happens is that when there is a request that goes to a model, there's a filter that takes place called LLM guard that then basically will redact anything that is sensitive. Now, in terms of the interface here, we have basically the ability to access pretty much any model that we want, right? So there's probably hundreds of models at this point, maybe even thousands. And so we can you don't have to go all in with OpenAI or all in with, Google or whatever. You can access all the different models all in one interface. And we have the ability to give different spaces to where you can provide documentation. You can say, okay, well, here's the You can tweak the model parameters in order to, make it like more creative or less creative, things like this. You have all that capability, and we can give it tools, right? So this is what I'm talking about. The model context protocol is that these models, we've given it the ability to break down tasks, to search, and to get the current date and time. And then, you can add to that, we have the, access into our systems and project management, financial systems, all this type of stuff, right? And so you can see here that just earlier today, because I didn't want to deal with the whole, in case the model provider themselves were saying, hey, we're, your rate limited or whatever, is earlier today I said, okay, well, go ahead and get the current date. And so it used the tool to get the date, and then I said, get me the recent baseball scores. And it used this search in order to get the baseball scores and provide the baseball scores, right? And then you saw here, this all was in the monitoring. This all was available in the event that, so we can tell a bunch of different things, right? Like what the cost is, and then also if the model kind of tends to go in the wrong direction, how do we, we can see what's going on with the model in order to, fix it. All right. Any questions about any of that? John, to do a quick check.
Yeah, we don't have any questions yet.
Okay, all right. So just to wrap up then, just to kind of, these are the types of things that we've historically worked on are these elements, and then we're introducing now this Blueprint AI Foundation. So it's $25 per user per month, up to 5 people. So just a little bit more than going in with one particular provider. And we'll give you the first 30 days for free, so we can go ahead and set it up and help you out, get it all dialed in and everything, and see if you like something like that. And then when you get up above 5 people, it's just $20 per user per month. And there's it takes a little bit of time to get this whole thing set up, so we're asking about $500 in order to get it started in your environment and work with you and all that type of stuff. There's also additional pieces. So if you can bring your own models to it. So what we ask though is, because we don't want to get into we don't want to be in the business of controlling all the different costs. These costs are out of our control. Is you can bring your own models. So you get what's known as an API key from the model provider, and then we plug that into the system. And we can help you do that. There's no issue with that. And then basically, that's billed separately. Integration with your system. So if you want us to help build a tool, like if a tool is already available, that's fine. We can just basically add the tool. You're good to go. All set. But if you want us to help us build, you want us to help you build a tool in order to access your systems, because there's not a tool out there available, then that's an additional billable amount. And then any extensive support on how to do something, like how to work with the models and all that stuff, that's going to be additional billable stuff. And then local models, you may want to run a local model, and if you do, that's totally fine. We can work with that. There's going to be a bigger cost for that, because GPUs, which is the ones that are recommended for running the chips, basically that are recommended for running local models, are more expensive, and so that's an option. And then we also have an AI agent workshop. Let's say you're not interested in the foundation, but you do have things that you want to do with AI agents. Like, hey, I have this really great idea. I want to have it, handle my work with again, we recommend the human in the loop situation, but just have the AI do the heavy lifting of reading and processing my invoices. Or like we have right now is working with the ticketing system and the CRM and whatnot. Or also, again, with us, we've set it up with Monday.com in order to do project management and to help organize and sort things. One of the things that I found, and you probably have found as well, is that there are limitations to these systems, because for whatever reason, the developer of the system And I'll give you one. We actually just had one just yesterday. There's a workflow that we're trying to accomplish within our system. And I got the information from support. There's no way you can do that. I'm like, what do you mean there's no way I can do this? You've been doing this for 40 years. How can I not do what I want to do? Like, I can't be the first person to want to do this. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to solve it with AI. And we're going to set up a scheduler, and AI is going to handle that workflow that apparently after 40 years they still haven't figured out this is what people want to do. So that's one use case that I think would be probably fantastic, is that we can set up to have AI do things that the system just won't do. All right, so that's everything from the presentation. Now, what we want to do is we want to switch it over to opening up for questions and answers, and just basically take the rest of the time in order to answer people's questions. So thank you all very much for attending.
A question on how to effectively prompt. You mentioned being precise and detailed, but also not asking too much in one prompt. Do you have any recommendations or worksheets or best ways to prompt?
Oh yeah, so that's a
great question.
Yeah, go ahead, John, if you want to take that one.
No, keep going. You're on a roll.
So yes, so basically, here's my recommendation. My recommendation is to ask an AI, how do I prompt an AI? One of the things that we've discovered since people have been working with AI models is that the most efficient and effective way of getting what you want from an AI model is to ask it. How I found out about this models being lazy part, I'll tell you a quick story about that. So I'm working with, I'm building one of these MCP tools for, I believe it was the security platform that we have, right? And I'm asking it to do some certain functions, and it has a list. And there's actually a really great tool from a coding perspective called Taskmaster AI, and we can provide the link to that. It's an open source tool. It basically you provide the tool, you provide the tool a document, it feeds the document to AI, and then it splits it down into a bunch of tasks that then the AI can follow step by step. So, and there's a whole bunch of other things associated with that, in order to like reduce the complexity, like if a task is too complex, you can analyze the complexity and then break it down into further subtasks. Well, what happened was in this particular instance, I was working with a particular task and it missed some steps. And I'm like, well, why did you miss some steps? And it's like, well, because you didn't say that this was production. You didn't indicate that this was something that I needed to be thorough with and that it was very important. So it's like, okay, great. Well, so how do I get you to be more thorough? And so then it gave me a list of, here's the things to say to an AI model in order to make sure that it knows this is something that is important. It's not just, I'm not just asking a basic question about, hey, I'm planning a trip to Japan and what are some ideas, right? It basically has to switch gears and to then say, oh, I need to be thorough in this instance. And that was fascinating to me. And I'll tell you, I've learned the most about AI from AI models. So to give you an idea, what I will do is I will say to one model, I will say, hey, I'm trying to tell this other model what to do. How should I do this? Because it's going to know what it is that is most effective and efficient for the AI model. And John has a funny story where he's doing the same thing, right? He's talking about one model to the other, and the one model got mad. You want to share that really quick, John? Because that's a funny story.
Yeah, I was asking a very simple question, and then I took the results of it and I passed it over to the other AI engine and said, hey, can you do a better job of giving me this list from the other AI? And it goes, of course I can, and it generated its longer list and more detailed list. But it is they are unique personalities, to say the least.
And thanks so much for joining us today. We hope that this was valuable, and we look to, if it makes sense, we're looking to add more, do more of these things and add more value to your day. Again, I give you a good, condensing of the information. If you want to drop us a line and tell us the types of things that you would be interested in knowing about, we'll be sure to include that in future discussions.